Wherever you go, whatever community you look at, every time there is an attempt to oppress people, prevent them from enjoying their rights, or threaten their life, they stand up to fight injustice and protect what we call human rights. And the struggle goes on because the world is still plagued by countless cases of oppression, all kinds of abuse and injustice. Human rights is a term that can bear so different meanings, and people have developed different philosophies about it. But the main thing to remember with this term is that each individual has the right to live freely on this earth. In fact, every human being is endowed with those inalienable rights, which every individual is supposed to enjoy freely from conception in womb to the grave. Madagascar has agreed to protect and respect human rights as stated in the Constitution. Prison is one of the elements in the system established within a given community. Those who break the laws, commit crimes, thus convicted by the court, are sent to prison. Nowadays, there are 82 jails in Madagascar. They are supposed to accommodate 13,000 prisoners, but as we speak, there are 18,000 people inside them. We used to have 97 prisons, but we had to close 15 of them for several reasons. This is the prison of Antanimur. It was built around the year 1947, and it is located in town. Antanimur is more than overcrowded now. Instead of having 800 prisoners, it now has 2,800. Unfortunately, this case does not only happen in Antanimur, it is common to all prisons throughout Madagascar. The prison of Madzang is also located in town. There are 610 people in that prison, including women, children under 18. At the prison of Miandvaj, the number of prisoners has already more than exceeded the normal, and the prison can barely fit everyone. The government made the effort of building a new facility, but it turned out to be smaller than the old one. The very hot climate is an important factor in prison. That is the reason why prisoners have decided to use tents to hide from the burning sun and have some cold sand to sit on. Here, most of the detainees are very young, and they were convicted of cattle rustling and homicide. Let us have a look at the prison of Port Berger, where there are 400 prisoners. This prison suffers from a severe overcrowding as well. The prison of Mampune has 233 prisons, also very old, and the size largely exceeds the number allowed. Cattle rustling does not happen only in the southern part of Madagascar, but it has also started to break out in the north. The prison located in Muramang is the smallest one in Madagascar, compared to those mentioned before. People are packed like animals here. Normally, the number of detainees should be 90, but at the present, there are 302 of them. Siafai is the most protected prison in Madagascar. It is located 24 kilometers south of Antananarivo. Built in 1978, it was initially a penitentiary camp for Antanimur. There are 700 prisoners here. However, the prison was built for 200 only.
Fonja izay misy amin'izao fotoana izao ny ankabeazany dia efa tamin'ny andron'ny talohan'ny fanjanahantany zany tamin'ny fotoanan'ny
Our jails date from the colonization, and the most recent ones were even built after independence, but there haven't been any initiatives to extend those jails, even if we saw that there were more and more prisoners. So this situation has led to prison overcrowding.
Zany toy zavatra zany no tonga ny hoe be lehibe ny voafonja nefa ny toerana ametrahana azy kely dia kely dia atao hoe surpopulation carcérale.
All of those statistics show us that many people commit crimes and break the laws because life is so difficult, and they ignore the fact that laws punish them for what they did wrong. Although law punishes people, human rights should be respected at all times. And for those who do not know it, there are laws for prisoners also.
Prisoners have the same rights like that of the other human beings. The only right that they cannot benefit from is the freedom to circulate freely in the country. Being prisoners, they do not have the right to move around outside, unless the court allows them to.
Prisoners' relative can bring food to prison. It is one of their rights. Here, they can also pray or organize a religious mass, but charitable associations and religious entities must obtain the authorization of the administration before holding such events.
Starting from here, a convicted person's life radically changes once he enters the prison, as he won't be allowed to move in and out freely like before anymore, when he was a member of the community but imprisoned here. Jails do not choose its residents. Everybody who breaks the laws and commits crimes are sent here. Everything changes in jails. For instance, a Malagasy person is used to eating 3 times a day. Here, prisoners only eat once a day, and they mainly eat cereals. It is either cassava or corn flour all year long.
We are fed up, but there is nothing to do. We are obliged to eat even if you don't want to.
It is our duty to provide food for prisoners, and 60% of the ministry's budget is allocated to their food.
If the family of the prisoner brings him food, his diet would change from time to time since it varies. Otherwise, they must be satisfied with what the government gives them, especially whenever their mom does not bring food to them. What happens if that mom does not come?
Most of us do not get any food from our families on an everyday basis. Since they work, they only send us uncooked rice.
There are families and NGOs which try to provide to detainees their daily food in order to complete their ration. Willingness people never cease to donate corn flour to the prisoners of Farafangan. We have noticed that only a few families bring food to the inmates, and there are no more than 10 baskets outside in front of the door. Most of those families live far away from the prison, and they only bring food once a month. It is not the case at the prison of Antanmur. Every Thursday and Sunday, and especially around the end of the month, the place looks like a big fair. There are around 700 baskets waiting outside. It means that there are still 2,100 prisoners who did not have their mom come. The prison administrators and few selected prisoners are in charge of receiving the food packages, and they are always checked. People complain about the search at the entrance, since the prisoners do not receive everything from the packages their families sent them.
We check whether the items indicated in the package corresponded to what have been mentioned by the family. We record it and other people inside double check it.
One can see fumes rising in the air at the prison of Antanmour every day because prisoners never cease to build fire. They cook the raw food their families gave them. Better off prisoners who have money pay other inmates to cook their food, thus give the latter a chance to survive in prison.
We are paid to cook this. How much do they give you? We only get what they pay us on a weekly basis.
Antanmour has become a small village. Many prisoners have even opened their own businesses and shops, and one can find whatever he needs here. This kind of petty trade has become famous in jails, and it is very common throughout Madagascar. There are small hotels, and there are even people who sell vegetables. All those are part of the economic system of the jail, and each person finds his own earning. There are those who work as hairdressers and others do the laundry. Gambling is also a famous activity. Sometimes people watch movies, and other prisoners earn their life through handcrafting, such as jewelry, sewing, or weaving. All products are sold outside prison. In terms of infrastructure, the prisons we visited are already dilapidated. For example, the prison of Antanmour hasn't changed too much, especially on the inside.
Here's the situation. Those jails are so dilapidated, and their residents have never stopped increasing. Therefore, there should be great efforts to build bigger prisons to comply with international standards. Attempts were made to restore prisons, but they were always done in a rush, so there hasn't been any major change.
That case happened to the prison of Port Berger. It was formerly a hospital, but when a hurricane blew down the prison, the prisoners were moved to here. Cells are often dark and have no windows through which the wind and light can come. That's the case, for instance, in the prison of Muramang, Port Berger, and Farafangan. Prisoners sleep on the ground because there are no mattresses. Water and sanitation are a big problem in jails, since there is not enough water that can satisfy the needs of the prisoners. For example, in Port Berger, the rainy season provides enough water to inmates, but in summer, they have a difficulty in finding water. The weather is so hot during that season that one has to take showers several times a day. So this has become a need, and that is why corruption has currently flourished in jail.
You can see that there are people who haven't had a bath for up to 5 days because there is a water shortage. But once a guest arrives at jail, you will not even notice that because we can get water at that time.
Sometimes, relatives bring water to prison because they are not sure of the cleanliness of the water there. In Antanmour, people have a certain difficulty to get water, given that the piping system is too old or barely works. In contrast to that, prisoners in Madzang, Farafangan, and Mianjvaj enjoy as much water as they want.
I paid from my own purse for this water fountain because I wanted to avoid evasion once we sent them to fetch water outside the jail. Given that there are not enough guards escorting them, those guys take advantage from the situation and try to evade. And as you see, it works well and meets everybody's needs.
The restroom is crumbling and the unpleasant smell provokes diseases among the prisoners, especially when the prison is closed at night. For prisons without restrooms, they use this system.
At night, we pee in this recipient, and to avoid that it stinks, while we are sleeping, we pour down a liter of water. Sometimes, it happens that our pees get inside and really stinks. If someone has an upset stomach, we already have those chamber pots at our disposal. We don't have a restroom inside, and at night we are locked inside. The director of the prison did his best and bought chamber pots. We tell you this situation so that you build a restroom for us. We can manage during daytime.
Here, the restroom fails to have roof and walls. However, other prisoners cook and eat nearby. Despite the fact that those jails are old and dilapidated, the government has made a great effort through their actions within jails, in addition to the assistance of NGOs.
Médecins du Monde has been working with us for 2 years. They mainly focus on rehabilitating prisons. They provide us with all the drugs and materials we need. They also built that infirmary and we have finished it this year. MC was there to work with the manager of the prison and the Ministry of Justice in better assuming their responsibilities.
Pour l'aider à mieux assumer ses responsabilités.
This situation has now changed since the association now deals with the improvement of food condition in jails. They are especially in charge of monitoring people afflicted by food shortage. Médecins du Monde has set up a system on the distribution of food within jails. It has been done in order to avoid food insufficiency. The goal is to make all prisoners stay healthy and have enough food. Nowadays, thanks to the support of NGOs and charity organizations, the prisoners are in good shape.
When we arrived here and started the program in 2005 and in 2007, in most of the other jails, the ration given by the penitentiary administration was far, far away from what we have now.
At the infirmary of the prison of Antanmour, NGOs also provide health care to prisoners such as the Aumônerie Catholique des Prisons. Here, they distribute medicines to those who are sick after the doctor checked on them. The association feels that they have accomplished their duty as they could operate freely, and there are tangible results.
There have been significant changes. The most important issue was food insufficiency. They were so thin and skeleton-like, sometimes up to 5 a day. 120 a month in 1986. That was the most important rate that have been recorded.
Prisons are often conducive to sexually transmitted diseases, and a number of associations volunteer to provide medical care to the prisoners. This is not an isolated case of Madagascar, but a worldwide practice. APRAM is an association committed to this kind of project in prisons.
We do many things, such as training prisoners to become peer educators.
A peer educator trains and teaches his fellow prisoners through debate, discussion, and film showing, and he urges them to do HIV testing as necessary.
Once again, you must not lend those razors we gave. Do you all hear me? Keep it for you. Don't give it to people if you don't want to get AIDS.
Tahirizina asa mena olo-kafa raha tsy teo voan'ny sida dia eritrereto voan'ny sida daholo ny olona manodidina anao mianto tena tsara ianao amin'izay.
The peer educator is also in charge of distributing condoms among prisoners if need be. Of course, that is naturally understood.
We chose prisoners to be in charge of the cells where there are high risks of sexual intercourse among men. It can be found at jails where people have been imprisoned for a long time.
After testing, some prisoners are found to be HIV positive. However, that does not seem to bring a real threat within the prison. The biggest issue of the prison of Antanmur is the presence of epidemic insects that infest the prison, such as bed bugs, lice. This has not been eradicated and has been passed on to generations of prisoners.
Lices are our common problem. Whoever you might be, poor or rich, you can't escape them. You see, at the cell C1, an extremely rash person tried to kill them, but no result. Those are all lices.
By comparison with women's jails are very neat, and they seem to be really fortunate compared to those prisoners mentioned before. The only issue is that the yard is so small and there are not enough spaces in prisons. For example, this woman has been at the prison of Port-Berger for 12 years and she will go out in 3 years. She has always occupied this small cell during her long stay. Nevertheless, one can see the radical changes after the restoration of the prison for women in Mazanga, thanks to the effort of the government. This is not the case of Antanmur, which has way more prisoners than it can hold. In addition, there are many convicted young people who break the law. They are sent to Antanmur. Those underage children commit various crimes nowadays, and their rate has never ceased to increase. Those crimes range from petty theft to serious crimes like homicide. They are imprisoned or stay here waiting for their trial.
Those children are not like casual prisoners. They are a bit violent, but here we respect human rights and we raise them as if they were our own children at home. I want to insist on food issue. Most of the family of the children here do not visit and bring food to them, and that is the only reason why they suffer a lot.
Given that there are too many prisoners, prisons are overcrowded, and most of the time everybody is mingled, female, male adults, or children, like in Mianjvaj, Farafangan, and few other jails. The prison of Madzang is an exception, since adult prisoners are set apart from underage prisoners. Women do not live with young people, and the other adults are put in other cells.
If a person who was convinced because he stole something stays here for a month, he will know how to rob banks, how to build a master key, or how to run an attack because everybody is mingled here. Those who committed serious crimes are gathered in a special location, but pickpockets and criminals live at the same place.
Human resources issues are among the problems at jails.
Most of those employees are already old, since half of them are over 50 years old. 4 of them will retire next year. As a result, they are only our friends, but they can't do anything. Our jobs requires a great amount of energy, strength, and dynamism. We are about 100 people. 25 guardians really work today, and other 25 people tomorrow. They are in charge of security. The other deal with paperwork and hospital monitoring.
that has resulted in the collaboration of prisoners and the staff. For instance, the security at the entrance, the transport of meals into the prison, and the overall surveillance inside the prison.
They are compelled to rule each other. We were obliged to establish this structure because we are short-staffed. There are few prison administrators.
Once a person is convicted, the only thing that he has in mind is to find ways to escape or to evade prison. This is what we call the prisoner's dream. And some have already attempted to evade but were caught in the act.
On November 7, 12 prisoners escaped from the jail. They dug a hole right here and sneaked out. Therefore, the prison should be restored. And even the Supreme Court and some people from the ministry came here and say that this should be done. But nothing happened so far.
Those two men are the prisoners who hold the idea of the famous escape at the prison of Port Berger. That is why this piece of wood is stuck to their feet to prevent them from running away. Indeed, this prison does not have any cell, and the prison administrators use this system to punish those who attempted to break away.
Bakwas.
Is the use of this bar your own idea, or is it legal in Madagascar?
We use it to discourage them from evasion.
Is it efficient?
Not really, it is just to lead them to give up any idea of trying to escape in the future.
In the old days, such pieces of wood were stuck to slaves' feet so they could not run away, and they are still used nowadays. Regardless of the crime, the prisoner's rights must be respected. Once he's arrested or prosecuted, he has the right to defend himself, have a lawyer, and present a witness.
Once the investigation is done and the evidences are gathered, we send them to the court for the trial. This means that we do not convict them, we only conduct the investigation and find evidences.
However, such is not the case sometimes. Some officers abuse their position. This young man has been convicted of swindling. He is now imprisoned at the prison of Montpellier. As we speak, he is sick due to the battery he was subjected to during his investigation at the police station. As you can see here, we encountered him at the infirmary.
It is part of our job, but the fact is that if they are seriously injured, those people should provide them with medical care before sending them back to us. Before there were so many cases of assault and battery, but these days it is not so frequent thanks to the NGOs in charge of the fight for human rights. This does not mean that it does not happen anymore. There are still some cases.
This woman was also subjected to mistreatments during her investigation.
We are very sorry because of what have been done to us before entering the prison. We were beaten and injured. In addition, we lost our phone, jewelry, etc. We wonder, nowadays, as far as human rights are concerned, is it still permitted to beat prisoners? We were terribly injured when arriving here.
This woman had a totally opposite experience. She was pregnant during her imprisonment at the prison of Muramang. She gave birth to her child at the public maternity on the day of our visit. She will stay there for a while, and after she will be sent back to prison again. Many women raise their children in jails, and that is a common issue in Madagascar. For instance, the prison of Antanmour is overcrowded by children and looks like a nursery. Those children are so happy playing in those four walls, and they do not even realize that they are prisoners like their mothers. However, they will only stay here for a long time. The prison of Tsiafai, it is far away from town. And we can find politicians or people who committed serious crimes here. As you can see, this prison was built to be strong. It is surrounded by 2 feet thick high walls. If you look from above, the prison is covered by a big wire netting.
They have been convicted for serious crimes, and some of them have been retried and come from the other jails, and in that case they are sentenced to death or hard labor, and obviously imprisoned here at Tiafa.
From the outside, these prisoners look like animals in the zoo of Tsimbazaz. The prison of Tiafa has already experienced evasions. As a result, the lock system has been reinforced, and so has the overall security. Security becomes rigorous and severe when prisoners should go in and out of the prison of Tiafa for their appointments at the tribunal.
For jail administrator like us, we think that jails are not places of oppression, but where to keep people, and since the prisoner is a human being, and therefore there are texts ruling our job, so we do our best to implement them.
Meal bags from families undergo very strict research, and they are checked in greater details before admission into the prison premises.
The reason why we organize this search is that we identify what should be allowed in and what shouldn't. If there are forbidden elements, we give them back to the family. We can't find knives, and people even try to introduce drugs.
Those who do not have cars, Tiafa is very far, since people are compelled to go on foot. Therefore, prisoners' families bring food once for the whole month. It is worth noticing that we could not enter the prison for security matters, so we took photos and filmed the inside of it through this small hole. Very early in the morning, fumes from Tiafa rise in the air. The kitchen is outside, unlike in other jails. It is located in the first area surrounded by the walls. 2 prisoners are in charge of the cooking. They have been selected among the others. What is your sentence?
Life.
How do you cope with?
Oh, it could be okay since people here act like our parents. They are kind and we appreciate it.
So even if you have been sentenced to life, you are still courageous?
Yes, I am.
Many prisoners do not have relatives since they were transferred and were taken away from their hometown. This is also another problem in jails in Madagascar. Many prisoners are spread all around the country, and they would like to go back home to be near their family.
We are from Diego. We suffer a lot far away from our relatives, so we would like to go back home.
Io moa zany misy zavatra be lehibe tsy maintsy hojerena raha miresaka hoe famondràna voafotsy.
As far as transfer is concerned, there are many elements that should be taken into account. Even if there are so many prisoners, they are very different one from the other. And in terms of security, there are highly secure jails, but there are less, and it is easier for some prisoners to escape from those places, especially for those who are used to it. It is then obvious that those people are to be sent in a well-guarded jail.
mametraka an'ilay resaka sécurité mitazomana fonja hoe tena tsy atahorana andositra ilay olona.
We are foreigner, and it is true that we did something wrong. Many of us are in prison for 10 or 20 years. And we would like to request for a transfer to the government if it is possible, because we are far away from our family. We fear that we die here abroad. It is better to be in prison in our country.
People always complain about this situation. For instance, they are from Thomason but arrested in Tulia. It is clear that the trial will take place there, and all the investigation as well. We can't satisfy every prisoner's wishes.
Most of the prisoners who come from the hot coastal areas are easily affected by diseases because they do not bear the cold. As a result, they suffer from severe lung problems like those people here.
The reason why they have lung problems is not due to the fact that they are kept in a stone wall, but they do not bear the climate since they are accustomed to the hot season in the coast.
If they cannot be treated here, they are sent to the infirmary of Antanmur.
We have an infirmary, but we don't have doctors. They only send the prisoner here when their diseases are at the critical stage. Those who are very weak die.
The field of education in jails is very important, and the issue was not underestimated. Those who do not know how to read and write learn for free. Volunteer teachers give classes to prisoners. For those who are interested in reading, they can come to that place. The library of Antanmur has 2,000 books. Almost all of those books come from NGOs' donations. 250 prisoners come to read and borrow books every day. According to the laws that govern the jail, released by the Ministry of Justice on May 5, 2008, Article 9, prisoners can read books and listen to the radio. All that has been said before reflects the daily life in prison, but the most important thing for them is to leave the place as soon as possible, but sometimes they are unfairly kept here for a longer time. It is also another big problem in Malagasy judicial system.
70% of prisoners in this have not their trial yet.
I am among those who are still waiting for their trials. It has been a year that I'm here, and we would like to ask for a little consideration of our cases.
An
effort to solve the case of a person who has been detained for a long time has been currently made. Laws about preventive detention, which limit the detention of an arrested person, compel the judge to release him or to try the affair quickly. At the moment of speaking, it is not allowed to detain a person for a long time at jails.
People who committed serious crimes like murders, rape, or keto sitting are among those waiting for their trials.
The implementation of the laws is biased since corruption is still overwhelming in the field.
It is sad that we are here because of unfair complaints. However, we did not commit the act. We are arrested and they released the rich persons who were caught red-handed. There is no respect of the rule of the law here, no transparency at all. Even if there are laws, money reigns here, not laws. I arrived here in September. I was assigned to this place since something happened. We could not find the register, and some people even vanished. There are people who are not listed in the register living at the prison, and others are to be found outside freely circulating. However, they are registered at the jail.
The law says that a prisoner who has already done 2/3 of his sentence has the right to work inside or outside the prison, like this young man.
We asked for a permission to work on site, but until now, there hasn't been any response from them. Parole is an empty premise. The job does not even exist. However, I will leave the prison soon.
It is amazing that most of those prisoners insist on claiming their innocence by saying that they were sent to prison because of false accusations against them and they were victims of slanders. There are also those who admit that they really committed crimes. For example, most of the young prisoners admitted their crimes, unlike those adults mentioned before.
Cases of cell phones and money.
Did you steal it?
I took it.
First time I see a young person confess a crime. Why did you do it?
Why did I take it? It is really a matter of temptation. I was also attracted by worldly things and I loved money. I robbed a house.
Have you already been tried?
Not yet.
How long have you been here?
4 months. I did it, but I was not the mastermind. It was my friend, and he convinced me to do so while I was still studying.
What did you do?
I killed someone.
Did you think that one day you could be arrested?
My friend told me that if I were arrested, he would not denounce me.
Any regrets?
I regret and I'm sad that I killed a human being like me. In our quarter, people are jealous and they are happy to denounce us because they want us to suffer here.
How do you feel now? Are you already used to staying here or is it still difficult for you?
I'm already accustomed to the atmosphere. I could not bear it before. It was hard. In addition, my sister passed away during my staying here and she had an accident on the way to visit me and bring food here.
The president used to grant pardon to prisoners or cut their sentences during special events like the National Day celebration or on the New Year's Day. But unfortunately, this has not happened over the last 3 years.
We would like to ask for a sentence reduction to the president because our number never ceases to increase.
In most of prisons we visited, we found many people who spent almost of their life at those places. This is the case of Justin. He has been in Antanmour for approximately 30 years, and he has always been waiting for a pardon, and he was sentenced to life.
I have been here for more than 30 years.
What do you mean by saying that?
I just want to say that I would like the Ministry of Justice to closely consider my case, since I'm getting very old. I got here at the age of 28, and now I'm nearly 59. I'm asking if something can be done for me.
A while after our interview, the justice favorably responded to his request. He was released on parole and he lives with his children now. Now, the government does its best with donors to get more involved in the improvement of prisoners' conditions at jails. The prison of Tiafa has got a newly built infrastructure located in Andrangarang, Arivunumam. The prison for women at Manzakandin has also drastically changed. Thanks to the current renovation, it is now very neat and secure. There are only 18 female prisoners in that jail. The Ministry of Justice and her colleagues visited them.
This prison was initially built for political prisoners, but we cooperated with the European Union in terms of funding to rehabilitate the jail.
Thanks to the collaboration of the government officials in Manzakandin and the prison administrators, the prisoners are well taken care of, said the head of the prison administration.
I took the initiative to approach local officers to avoid food insufficiency within the prison. Given that, I already worked in Yandvaz where there was insufficient food. I asked for cooperation and they responded to my request. The commune gave us water.
There have been many rumors about this prison of Manzakandin. It is said that nobody can live here and prisoners are mistreated, and those who are here have been complaining. During her visit, the Ministry of Justice talked and discussed with the prisoners.
Have all of you already been tried?
Yes, madam.
Here we can see the prison of Vatumand, one of what we might call a model prison, thanks to its standardized infrastructure. The European Union actively contributes to the improvement of prison life conditions, judicial affairs, and the respect of prisoners' rights. To this regard, the Minister of Justice, Bakulalau Ramanadabe Ranaivarvun, and the Ambassador to the European Union, Jean-Claude Baudin, paid a visit to the prison of Avatumand last September. Prisoners are separated according to their respective categories. That means those who have already been tried are set apart in different cells from those who wait for their trials. Likewise, underage prisoners have their own space, and female prisoners also have their own cells in Vatumand.
During the last 2 years, how many women prisoners have you had here?
17, and the number kept going down. Sometimes in a month, there isn't any women prisoners here.
The yard is very spacious. There are enough bathrooms and the water meets the prisoners' needs. This room is what we call a multi-purpose room. Prisoners can spare their times there. They can learn and acquire knowledge here, and they can even hold a religious mass at that place. The prison of Vatumand also has an infirmary and has sufficient medical support, since an NGO constantly provides all the drugs needed.
Medicate provides us medicines. They come here every 3 months for their tea. Medicate works with around 10 jails in Madagascar.
11 prisons collaborate with Medicap in Madagascar, which works mainly in eastern Madagascar.
There have been many changes in terms of health. We started in 2001 and many people were so thin. Many of them died, and nowadays death rate has decreased because we closely monitor their body mass index and their diet.
They also have a special room where prisoners are given appropriate care, and if they need more treatment, they are sent to hospital. This house is the former prison of Batmanj. Now it is only used as warehouse because it is too old. This place was formerly called Dark House. Now the term has become prison, and people are not called prisons anymore, but inmates. And it is normal that the Dark House is no longer used because it is very old and dilapidated. However, people in charge of the house plan to renovate it and turn it into a storage room for crop. This board shows us that the detainees eat 3 times a day, and the menu may vary. For example, for breakfast, they can have corn flour, cassava, and beans for lunch, and cassava again, and vegetable for dinner. On Sundays or special events, prisoners eat rice accompanied by meat or fish. This penitentiary camp allocated to the prison of Batmanj is located in Tsaratanan. It covers around 96 hectares. Select prisoners are allowed to live with their respective families at the penitentiary camp, where they can deal with agriculture and farming. The Minister of Justice and the Ambassador to the European Union recently visited this camp. Days is one of the people in charge of the fish farming of the camp.
Sometimes we can get around 200 kilos. This is an important lesson to be retained from the link between the penitentiary camp and the prison. The penitentiary camp is a way to improve prisoners' diet and to provide food from the prison. It also gives them an opportunity to resume working in the field of agriculture, and it is a good way of reinsertion.
In terms of project in Batmanj, donors are really satisfied with the jail of Batmanj since they meet the required criteria regarding the respect of human rights.
Generally, the human rights situation in Madagascar is better than in other countries, but the only problem in that field is the situation of prisoners. We do not lack food. What is written on this board is not a lie. We experience it every day. And as you can see, we always eat corn flour at 9:13 a.m. ACP and CRS are helping us.
When you leave the jail and remember that you were a prisoner, what will you do?
I will implement what I study here once I'm outside.
So you feel that somewhere you did not waste your time at the penitentiary camp?
Oh yes, now I can get enough food, and at the same time I study agriculture and farming techniques.
People are starting to respect and promote human rights, as the conditions for the implementation of these rights are very satisfactory. However, on the whole, the prisoners' rights are not yet respected because most of the jails are still facing various difficulties and problems.
Generally, the human rights situation in Madagascar is better than in other countries, but the only problem in that field is the situation of prisoners. The vast majority of prisoners still live in a bad condition in Madagascar, since they are nearly 18,000 if I'm not mistaken. The European Union fully supports the reform that the Ministry of Justice intends to implement and whatever might be the needs. We are always willing to help wherever needed.
Society often criticizes and condemns the Ministry of Justice, and we can hear about their criticisms all around the country. As a result, the ministry has decided to set up a policy that would allow the quick implementation of projects within jails and to quickly get a result. It is called the Rapid Result Initiative.
Ny RRI moa zany dia hoe résultat takany rapide ny filazana azy.
RRI stand for Rapid Result Initiative. It means that a project has to be implemented within 100 or 150 days, and there should be results. There is the focal point in Manakar, but Farfangan and Mananzar are also concerned in the project. We will go on the spot in November for the follow-up and the monitoring. We are currently speeding up trial. You heard the ambassador saying that he is satisfied with human rights condition in Madagascar. As a result, the Ministry of Justice made human rights activities among its priorities so as to get a good result.
All that we mentioned covers everything about jails in our country. There are two different concepts and ways of seeing the meaning of the prisoner's rights. And a question comes to mind. Is it fair to protect the rights of people who commit crimes and break the laws?
We are really thankful to the General Attorney of the District of Mianvas, especially for organizing meetings and exchanges of ideas. During those meetings, I had a serious discussion with him on human rights issues. If Rakut is being attacked, should we stay there without doing anything because they will shoot you if you attempt to arrest them given that they are criminals? Prisoners' rights are very delicate issues. Because I already said that every human being has their own right, prisoner or not, and I can say that the struggle for the prisoner's right continues since the implementation of the laws concerning them has not been established yet. In one hand, we always say that the people do not respect human rights. There have been great efforts, you know. On the other, we tend to say that yes, human rights are respected. However, there are still other things to be done. Malagasy people and even Christian people affirm that if you are in prison, you lose your right away. We are completely misled in terms of our knowledge about human rights. We think that prisoners do not have the right to get appropriate health care. They are obliged to work hard, and there are even people who make them work without compensation. The only punishment prisoners should be subjected is the sentences pronounced by the court. He is not allowed to circulate freely but kept in jail. If someone dares to add more than that during the detention, that person is violating the right of the prisoner.
The population growth has never ceased to increase. People become more and more demanding. Besides, the country's poverty leads people to illegal activities. As a result, those who break the law will go right away to Antanmur, and if we are not careful enough, the number of prisoners will rapidly increase because of ignorance. If that is the case, the budget of the government will mostly be used in helping and providing food for lawbreakers. It means that the government must spend more to build more jails, extend the surface used to grow cassava and corn. Here's our concern. Are those solutions efficient? Whether we like it or not, even if a person has been condemned by the law, his dignity must be respected. Knowing that Madagascar has agreed to respect the International Agreement on Human Rights, prisoners' basic rights cannot be removed from the human perspective. So, we should head towards that direction. What are we looking for? A destructive jail or a jail that restores those who have lost their way.